Hi, I'm Jagdish. In my career, I worked on a projects in the pharmacovigilance domain. One thing I learned is that projects don't start with the project plan. They start with a business problem. In this series, I will take you through project management from business need to closure using MedDRA Automation scenario. Inspired by the type of work I've handled, I will keep details generic and won't disclose confidential information. Like, next, we'll just move on to the next slide, which talks about a project does not start with a project plan. In my work, I have seen how manual activities in pharmacovigilance can become challenging as volumes increase. MedDRA coding is a good example. Manual coding can require significant effort and careful review. As a project manager, the lesson I learned is don't immediately jump to a technology solution. First, understand the business problem, then the business impact, then what is the need for the change, then the project. So, the interview question would be like, if an interviewer asks how I identify a project need, I start with the current state and problem and business impact. What is business need? A business need is not necessarily a request for software. It can be a problem, that is something is not working. Opportunity, a better outcome is possible. Requirement, a business customer regulatory need. Strategic goal supports a larger organizational objective. In my career, I have seen project discussion starts from operational pain points. The PM, that project manager, converts that pain point into a clearly understood business need. Let me use a MedDRA automation as a running example. Imagine the current process involves manual coding of adverse event and medical history. As case volume increases and the complexity increase, the activity can become more time consuming and create challenges around inconsistency, rework, and scalability. The question to be asked by the project manager is like, what is the business impact of continuing the current process? Le- we should not jump into let's automate. First, understand the process, pain points, and root causes. Don't describe the current state first. Don't start by assuming automation is the answer. In my projects, I start my understanding how the current process work, like how does the process work today? Who performs it? Where are the bottlenecks? How much effort is required? What are the quality turnaround challenges? What happens as the volume increases? Mention that people closest to the process often know practical pain points that documents may not show. Root cause, this is one of the important topic or a heading which I want to discuss. Root cause versus symptom. If someone tells me manual coding is taking too much time, I would not stop there. I would ask why. Is it because of volume? Is it because of repetitive work? Is it because of complex coding decisions? Lack of standardization or manual data handling? Distinguish the symptom and the root cause from the root cause before investing in a solution. Don't solve the symptom without understanding the solution. I have learned that business impact becomes easier to discuss when we quantify the current state. I would look at effort, that time, manual effort or turnaround time, cost, resource or operational cost, quality, that is errors or rework, capacity, ability to scale, risk, operational or compliance exposure. I use actual organizational data n- when permitted. For this YouTube example, I do not invent confidential numbers. Convert the problem into a business objective. One mistake I've seen is describing the solution as an objective. Implement automation is a solution. A stronger objective would be like reduce manual effort and turnaround time while maintaining quality, consistency, and compliance. Show business outcome thinking, not just technology delivery. What is the success criteria? When I define success criteria, I ask, after we deliver this, what should be measurable better than today? Mention possible measures like manual effort reduction, coding accuracy, productivity, validation, compliance acceptance, turnaround time improvement, rework reduction, user adoption. Lessons learned is without measurable success criteria, it is difficult to demonstrate business value after go live. Like think like a business baseline, target actual result, identify stakeholders. So now for a pharmacovigilance related change, I would not manage this with only IT team. I would need business PV stakeholders, that is sponsor, business product owner, PV and MedDRA SMEs, end users, technology, QA testing, validation compliance, project manager, and leadership. Who decides, who provides requirements, who builds, who validates, and who uses, who is affected, all these things should be covered over here. One important lesson for a project manager is stakeholder management starts before execution. Explore options, don't assume the solution. Continue manual. If we continue manual, what is that going to impact? There will be no implementation in investment. Existing process remains. Partial automation. Automation plus human review balances efficiency and oversight. Higher automation, greater potential efficiency. Higher complexity, control needs. We would evaluate value, cost, effort, timeline, feasibility, risk, quality, compliance. The business or a sponsor may make the final decision. The project manager facilitates a structured decision. Personal story, business case, the decision framework. When I communicate a project idea into leadership, I think about these questions, the questions leadership would ask. Why? That is the problem or opportunity. What? Proposed outcome. How much? Investment cost. How long? Expected timeline. What do we gain? What are the benefits? What do go wrong? What are the risks? What happens if we do nothing? Cost of inaction. That is the thinking behind the business case. Now, the next slide talks about project versus business as usual. Project. What is a project? It is a temporary endeavor of a defined objective, specific deliverables as a start to end. Business as usual, ongoing operations, repetitive or continuous, operational ownership, no defined project end. I find it useful to separate project work from business as usual. Implementing the MedDRA automation capability is a project because it is temporary with defined deliverables. Ongoing support, updates, and operational monitoring becomes BA business as usual or maintenance. Metro automation implementation is project ongoing support updates is equal to business as usual and maintenance. This shows understanding of a full life cycle. As a project manager, I do not necessarily make business decision to automate. My responsibility is to bring structure to the decision, like understand the problem, facilitate stakeholder discussion, clarify objectives, identify stakeholders, establish initial scope, identify assumption constraints, identify initial risks, support option analysis, coordinate with the business case, define success criteria, facilitate approval. Project manager starts with creating clarity before execution. Interview questions. These are the questions I would prepare for at this stage. I would answer them from my own experience rather than memorize a textbook answer. Use a framework like situation, action, why, and outcome. Like the question should be like, how do you identify a project need? How do you convert a business problem into an objective? How do you identify stakeholders? How do you define project success? How would you build a business case? How do you decide whether automation is worth implementing? What if the business has not qualified the problem, quantified the problem? Explain your thinking, not just definition. We are going to, I'm going to prepare a mini exercise like I would put a scenario like what was the problem, what for this scenario. Like your organization spends significant time manually preparing a monthly regulatory report. Over here, identify what is the business problem, root cause, stakeholders, success criteria, current state impact, business objective, possible solutions, information needed after approval. This is also how I prepare for interviews. I turn my experience into a structured story. The business to a project framework. When I look back at projects I have worked on, I find this sequence very useful. Business need, that is, what is the current state? Root cause, business impact, what is the objective? What is stakeholder? Who are the stakeholders involved? What are the options? Business case, what is the success criteria? And project approval. Once the project is approved, the next question is how we formally structure it. That takes us to a project initiation. What should you take away from this video? Before me, before we move on, let me summarize what I want to take away from this video. When I look at the projects from my career, I find this sequence very useful. Business problem, that is current state, root cause, business impact, business objective, evaluate options, business case, and success criteria. Now, I want you to think about one project you have worked on. Can you explain these 8 steps for your own project? Before starting your next project, ask yourself, what problem are we actually solving? What business actually do we want? How will we measure success? Who needs to be involved? Have we evaluated the alternatives? This is the mindset I want to build through this series. We are not just learning project management terminology, we are learning how to think like a project manager. Once the business has approved, the project. What happens next? In this next video, I will take you into project initiation, scope, stakeholders, charters, assumptions, constraints, and governance. Takeaway. If I were answering an interviewer, I would say a project does not begin with execution. It begins by understanding why the organization needs the change and whether investing in that change makes business sense. That is the mindset I am using throughout the series. Not just what a project manager does, but how I have learned to think about projects through my career experiences. Next video, I'm going to take you through project initiation, that is scope, stakeholder, charter, assumption, constraints, governance.